India and China, they continue to hold the world attention regarding their rapid growth rates. India is 43rd in this year's rankings, and China is the 54th most competitive economy. How do you reconcile the high growth of these two countries and their perception of being very competitive with their relatively low ranking in the Global Competitiveness Index?
Yeah. You know that our measure of competitiveness, or our definition of competitiveness, is one that brings in a multiplicity of elements that have a bearing on a country's capacity to grow on a sustainable basis over the medium to longer term. What you see in places like India and China is that, yes, indeed, the growth rates in the last few years have been very, very high. But these are countries that at the same time have a number of other institutional weaknesses and structural problems which need to be addressed if the benefits of this growth are going to be evenly spread throughout the population. Let me give you a couple of examples. There is much talk about India, for instance, beginning to move to the technology frontier. You pick up an issue of Business Week and they will tell you about the large number of engineers which are graduating from the top technological institutes in India. And this is all quite true. And yet, when you actually look at the school enrollment indicators for India, what you actually discover is that there are hundreds of millions of people who have not gained access to the most elementary education. So you have this kind of paradox of a country that, because it has 1.1 billion people, is actually able to educate a very large number of engineers, but at the same time, simultaneously, may have hundreds of millions of people who don't have access, to some of the basic infrastructure, basic public health, or access to elementary education. China, again, a booming economy on the one hand, but in China, when you survey the business community, you discover that there are issues of property rights, there are issues of the way that the judicial system works, there are issues concerning the level of bureaucracy and the levels of transparency in the operation of the public sector. Unless those issues are addressed and unless reforms are introduced to confront these problems, then what you're going to see is basically a growth rate which may at some point accelerate, or you may likewise, as you have seen in India, see a growth which is not of benefit to all of society.